Oh yeah. There's a real good book that Avians recommended. It's called Well-Being, and I learned so much from that book. They just read it, but it goes through all kinds of.
I'm going to be passing around this. It's just your name and email address. If you want me to shoot you this lecture in email. You'll just do the whole classroom as one thing.
The other one I just got to 10, I was still quiet until he hears me story. Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I was so excited.
Well, I tell you, we got so many dogs here, so many cancer treatments, so many this and that and the other. I feel like we're back together. Oh, and we spent every weekend with
Did you ever see the place before they started to rehab the building? Oh man, it was something. I've been here since the ground up watching.
Wow.
Watching the rehab.
That would be fascinating.
I'm sure they've got pictures of it. Yeah. Yeah, because it
couldn't wait.
I got into pizza. I don't know if you did this. I was living in England, in London, and it was amazing. You know, the transportation was 15. I
Oh my.
And she just and then her mom, since her real estate business, learned to acquire this property together, and they started doing the slowly doing the rehab. This is incredible. You would have thought that this place was a tear down, and they really sunk a lot of money into rehab this place. Sometimes rehab is more expensive. Raise the place and start over. So it's been a fascinating journey for almost 20 years. I watched her kids grow up. Yeah. Her Henry, that they adopted, he became there. She sent me a picture of him. She sent out a notice in some of the clients that he became part of the permanent family. So I always remember that. I haven't seen him Emma is 8 months old, crawling around the floor. Thank you. And at that time, I had a pot-bellied pig, which I have to bring it to.
Yeah, so I knew I was gonna love it.
And what is this little potato?
I was finding
That
out
is a,
you're the only one I'm gonna do a pig on. I'm never doing a pig ever again.
Our families need a fair for that.
Yeah,
we really do. We had all
This is the coolest thing.
Oh, yeah. I have horses too. I mean, I had some out of So it was my dream, and I got to live it for a while, and it was great. You know. So, yeah. I didn't set out to have 10. They would show up.
Because he wonders so much.
Yeah, I was just around 6, and then, like I said, one of them they've been dying off, and now I've got one that is blind.
She had it in her,
Gets
yeah,
out
she's a
twice a day, and now she's on cardiac meds.
So,
and she was
all our
having these little
sheets
heart
are
attacks. And pass out.
and I'll be walking downstairs.
She literally just went unconscious, and my arms and feet on, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And I knew it wasn't a seizure, because she was out. And I'm like, oh my God, she's dying on me.
They're downstairs watching live streaming.
We
We made all the staff come to it.
Yeah, we're still watching over there, flying stairs, we're together watching it now. We're down with the Ozonated. I'll never send us that, I have no idea.
It's just the mother. She said, we were all playing with the dog.
Hello, everybody. I know that's all of your faces. Thanks so much for coming tonight. I just need the handout that you guys have. Anybody have an extra? No, you keep it.
I'll get it back from you. I'll get it back from you.
Okay, she'll come through here and give you another one. Who's first time coming to a lecture?
Hey.
Ooh, awesome! Yay! Welcome. Do you guys want to get wine or food before we get started? Everybody good, happy? Feel free to get up, move around. It's very informal. Interrupt me. Oh my God, I didn't miss it. Okay, I'm sorry. That's okay. That was you. You're hiding behind the computer. Here's Hannah. She's coming with her. Do you have more, Hannah? Okay, thanks. I just need more. I took one from. Wonderful, wonderful.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. I brought a book. I'll give it to you at the end. But this is for you and Dr. Mason.
Thank you. Awesome.
Okay, that was, has it started?
If I look funny, it's because they're live streaming me and I don't want to look like I have double chins. No, I'm kidding.
Is it started yet?
I'm very vain.
I'm
talking, but we're not officially started.
Oh, no.
Are we officially started? We're officially started.
We were officially started 8
I'm
minutes
on the
ago.
interwebs right now.
So were you incriminating yourself for a little
Yes.
bit?
Yeah.
I just thought that
We
was
can
on.
watch that back later.
Where's it live streaming?
Facebook.
Oh, cool.
Anybody? More paperwork? Good to get done.
She was like throwing out on my floor doing some.
We're going to do some housekeeping stuff first, just some announcements. First of all, thanks so much for coming out to these. These are so fun and they're getting more and more popular, and it's exciting. I love doing it. I love interacting with all you guys, and so it's a treat for me. Our next lecture is going to be emergency medicine. What can you do at home with your animal, cat, dog, bird? And what my goal is to have some little emergency kits here for you guys for that lecture. So Dr. Schrager, who has extensive emergency medicine experience, worked in DC for a decade at an emergency clinic, is going to be hosting that for us. So that's going to be a great one. And that is going to be September the 6th. So it's really not in a month. It's in a few weeks. And so we're excited about that one. We also have in October, we had scheduled an essential oil class that I think everybody's excited about. We're going to put that one on hold and bring in 2 different lectures. So we're going to bring in dentistry. So our Kevin is going to be showing it's going to be a fun interactive class because he's taught me way more than I learned in vet school about dentistry. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Can you just ask if everyone can hear you fine?
Can you hear me fine?
And then. Okay, you can keep talking.
Awesome.
I'll figure it
Out there in the webs. I'm very excited too to announce that we are going to be bringing in an animal Reiki practitioner to teach introduction to animal Reiki. So there will be a fee of a small class. So if you're not getting our emails about when our classes are, let us get that information tonight so you can see it. We do a lecture at least every month. My goal was to do 12 lectures and kind of just repeat them every year, but there's no way. We have so much to talk about. We can't repeat lectures for a while, so we just have a lot to get through. Yeah, come on in.
And wine.
Wine. Yeah.
Where it is? Well, we can say, excuse me, pardon me.
Yeah, this is very informal. Okay. We are currently looking for a new location because as much as I love to host it here in Florida Wild, we're kind of outgrowing this space. So stay tuned as well if you're getting our emails. We've got some leads of where we might go. We're going to try to keep it close, but we very much want to continue to serve wine and some hors d'oeuvres, so that's limiting us on our location. So stay tuned for different locations. Okay, we're online streaming now. So if you need to stay in your pajamas, but you want to hear a lecture, feel free, even though I love to see your face and interact with you here, and you get the wine. You can stay at home, and I think we can interact with them online.
Yep, as long as Hannah's not sick, because you won't know how to do this by yourself.
Correct. I will not be able to do that. Okay. Also, if you guys have a burning hot desire to hear a lecture, please email us. Let us know. Maybe it's something we haven't thought of that would make a great lecture education series. Just let us know. We'd be happy to add something in. Okay. This is going to be a lot of information, and this is mostly going to be about parrots. So as I very much want to incorporate wildlife and wild birds into this because we do see a lot of it, I can't because there's so much information. So that might be something that we do down the road. We might have a wildlife. We do need to recruit people to help us in the baby squirrel season and the wild bird season, and you can actually work under our license. So if we train you, you can help us, and that way we can get these babies out of the hospital and into an environment that's more quiet, less stressful, and then we can get them released. So stay tuned for that as well. I think that's going to be coming up. Okay, let's start off with some fun. All right. Shout out the answer if you want to. We're going to do a little bird trivia. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7 questions. All right. Question number 1. How long do African gray parrots live?
75 years.
75 years. Average of 50 years in captivity and up to 80 years in the wild. Good job. It's a long time. Put them in your will.
Right.
Where does the Quaker parrot originate from?
Central America?
South America.
South
Close.
America.
Yeah, good job. Incidentally, it's now in Puerto Rico and some parts of the United States. So that's cool. All right, bless you. This is fun. Ostriches have the largest what of any land animal?
Thanks.
Yes.
Legs.
Eyes.
Wingspan.
Eyes! Good one! I learned that today. They have the eyes are the size of billiard balls.
Wow.
And are larger than their brains.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
If you look at it,
Yeah.
that sounds a lot.
Yes. So that was pretty cool. All right, another fun one. Which bird is the closest living relative to the Dinosaurus rex? Yeah, who said chicken?
Chicken?
Woo! Back then. Good job.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Which bird can fly backwards? Hummingbird. Yes. Good job. Oh.
It's all coming together.
I love it. They do the Michael Jackson. Okay. This bright pink species mates for a lifetime, up to 50 years.
Flamingo.
Flamingos. Okay, and this is just a cute one. If a female is a peahen and a male is a peacock, what's the baby called?
Kiwi.
Yes. Any other guess?
I used to know this because I had peacocks.
A peachick.
Right.
Oh,
peachick,
it's so
yeah.
cute. I know, I love that. Okay, here we go. So, like I said, this is going to be very informal. This is you guys as owners, what can you do to enrich and make your bird's life amazing? Because we probably all feel the same way, in that living in captivity for a bird is not ideal. But we love them. We have them in captivity, and so now we have a responsibility to help them live the best possible life in captivity. And especially being a bird practitioner, I see all the time evidence that birds are unhappy, that they're not doing well in captivity. And so a lot of my job that I do with birds is to try to adjust things in the household environment to try to make them comfortable and happy, okay? Because their behavior in the wild, they do preening, they clean their body, they mate, they fly for miles and miles, some thousands of miles when they migrate, and they forage for food. And so that's the majority of their day. And so I always tell owners, you've probably heard this spiel if you brought your bird into me, is that now we've taken those birds, we've clipped their wings, we've put them into a cage. Typically, we've taken a mate away from them. We put a bowl of food in front of them. We've taken away almost every single natural behavior that they have. And we're wondering why our birds bite us, why they scream at us, why they feather destruct, some to the point where they destroy their bodies. Because when our birds are living in captivity, if they're not being taken care of properly, they're living stressful lives. And so they're chronically under stress. So it's very important to be aware of that and to think that it's not when you're owning a bird, you're not owning a cat or a dog. You're owning a very highly intelligent and sensitive animal that really is affected by your household. You know, if there's any type of disruption in the household, if you're moving, anything like that, this is a cat or a dog may be affected, but a bird is typically affected more. So that's just always where I like to start. So we'll keep that in mind. That's the foundation of how we're treating and taking care of our birds. Okay, so what our goal is then is our goal is to take this environment that we've created for them and to make it as close to natural as possible. And that varies. That doesn't mean that your bird environment is the same as your bird environment. So it just depends on the bird. It depends on the space that you have, but we're going to try to do as much as we can. If there's an aviary situation at home where we can keep our birds flighted and it's safe, then that's wonderful. We're going to encourage that, of course. But sometimes that's not safe. My bird is clipped, has a very small wing clipping. So you just have to do what's safe for your family. Just real quick, we'll run through, you know, in the natural habitat, birds, their feet and their wings are their livelihood. So they pick the most pristine of perches, and they're going to pick the perches that are very high up. So they want to be able to look down. They want to feel safe high up. They can see everything, and they know already instinctively that they need to protect their feet. Also in the wild, there's a huge variation of perch size. So we tend to have in our cages a dowel, a wooden dowel, and minimal variations of the perches. Now, if you come to see me, you guys are already experts, and this may be like basic for you because I talk about this all the time, but changing the perch size is very important for them because the way they rest their feet. So if they're resting and rocking back a little bit, I'm gonna see lesions on the bottom of their feet. We just saw a little budgie that had that. So we have to watch those because those can be very dangerous. So one more point about perches. So if we have talked about that they want to stay as high as possible in their cage, you will find that that outweighs the perch material. So often we'll have a client come in and bring their cage and they've got a cement perch to Dremel the nails. I absolutely hate these. There's not one single situation in which this is an appropriate perch for birds. Birds do not perch with their nails. They perch with their feet, and their feet are very sensitive. So giving them concrete perches is not a good idea. So they're going to, if it's the highest perch in the cage, they're going to choose that because they feel safe up there, and they're going to sacrifice their feet. So always we want a very soft, comfy perch up high for them. I love the rope perches. I also like the manzaniti perches that are kind of wood. And I love natural perches. Fruit trees are great. So got a friend who has a fruit tree, cut some branches down, put them in there, scrub them with soap and water, let them dry in the sun, and then you can just make some really neat perches in there. And what are you also doing is varying the perch size so that the bird is not constantly sitting on one size and one perch, okay? And then, of course, in the wild, they're foraging. They're going to, they may be fruit eaters, but they may accidentally eat an insect when they eat fruit. And so they, too, instinctively know what they need to eat. We have scarlet macaws who will go to the clay cliffs and get the minerals from the clay cliffs. So they're in the wild, they know what they need to eat, and we're doing the best we can in captivity to try to recreate the variety. So variety is very important. They're very sexual. If you have a bird, you know it. They mate. This is a huge part of who they are. And so once again, we've taken their ability to mate away as well. They clean themselves. They like to take baths. Some birds in captivity don't take baths. We'll talk about later on how we can get them to want to bathe a little bit more. They're exercising for miles and miles. They are getting the varied diet. And we already kind of mentioned prey species and that they are hunted typically. And so they sleep in cavities where they feel very secure and they don't have stress, or they're typically perching very high up where they can see the lay of the land. And this is what makes them feel safe. And so in being a prey species, that always means, especially to the veterinarian, that they are going to withhold as much as possible any sickness from you. Because if they're in the wild and they're going to get eaten. So that's why, as we talk later on down, routine screening tests are very important for your birds. Just being astutely or acutely aware of their fecal output, eating, all voice changes, all those things are very critical because those early detections help me out enormously. Once you bring in a very sick bird, it's tough. It's not impossible. It's just tough to try and bring them back. So the more aggressive you are with us, my entire staff is trained that if you call Florida Wild and say, I'm worried about my bird, you are in immediately. You do not have to wait for an appointment. Okay? So again, we take our birds, we clip their wings, we put them in a cage. And so we got to do the best we can by them. So just a couple of things of keeping them in captivity. I am a huge fan, and I don't know if everybody's talked to or heard me talk about abundance weaning. Abundance Weaning is a beautiful publication that I cannot find anymore. Otherwise, I would be selling it here. It's a wonderful publication. An avian veterinarian 20 years ago wrote this kind of thesis, Abundance Weaning, and it is just beautifully written. And what it means is when these guys are being weaned, and you can, of course, extrapolate, not necessarily when they're being weaned, but at all times, it is critical at this time in their life that you change everything around for them. So we kind of get into this routine of they go into the same cage, they get the same food, nothing's moved in their cage, they're in the same corner of the living room, the lighting's the same, you're the same person that feeds them every day, and this is what these birds get really accustomed to. These birds are extremely sensitive. We talked about most of them mate for life. They're immediately going to assume that you're their mate. And so abundance weaning is when you're weaning the baby birds, or perhaps getting a new bird or rescuing a bird, you gently introduce changes to this bird as much as you possibly can. You change the environment, you change what toys are in there, you change around the food, we'll talk about that later, you change around who feeds. You do as much changing as you possibly can to get them acclimated, because you may be extremely excited to have a bird for the first 3 months, and then 3 months goes by and you don't have quite the time that you had with them. And if you were spending enormous amounts of time with the bird and suddenly you're not, they don't understand that. Or if suddenly you get a new job and you have to go to work, if they hadn't had a shaken up schedule, then these are when we see a lot of the bad behaviors. We start seeing feather destruction, we start seeing screaming, they don't understand. And then I start seeing frustrated owners who need to give their bird away. And now this very sensitive bird is going into a new environment, and it's a snowball effect of very bad things. So if we're all working hard on trying to, and this certainly goes to everybody you know that has a bird, this isn't secret Florida Wild knowledge, please spread it and share it, because the amount of homeless birds and birds need to be rehomed is really devastating. Okay, that's it about that. So that's abundance weaning, and it's very, very important. The other thing we see a lot with our birds is that they're raised by humans. And so this makes for a naughty bird typically, because mama birds are gonna bite their baby when they get out of hand. But we just are like, oh no, stop, and we need to hand feed them. So we can see a lot of biting behavior with birds that are raised by humans. So just something throwing out there, be aware of that. Something that's very important with our birds in captivity is learning how to interact with them. It is really an amazing experience to get a new cockatoo who wants to be on you at all times, and you love them, and they literally want to be surgically implanted on you. And it's so much fun when you first get them, and you're feeding them, and they're here, and they're happy and wonderful, and you're stroking them down the back and all this. But when I tell owners, and I try to be kind of tough, I give them tough love, is that this is ultimately going to be devastating for the cockatoo, because cockatoos really have to learn to be a flock species in your home and not a mate of you. These guys do want to be surgically implanted. They're enormously affectionate typically, and these guys and African grays, our two smartest birds, are the ones that we see that really start destroying themselves because of stress and not being able to get what they want. So always keep that in mind. You absolutely can pet your bird. My African gray, she gets love on her head. She never gets scratches underneath her wing or down her back. That's a reproductive stimulation. So try to keep it to the neck above, and then before she goes to bed, I will kiss her on the wing, but the outside of the wing. And so those are appropriate behaviors so that she does not feel like I'm her mate. I also don't feed her from my mouth. I know it's tempting, a lot of babies want to do it, but that's again another reproductive stimulation for them that can down the road, if they hit sexual maturity, cause them a lot of frustration because they think you're a mate. Another thing I don't like in my bird cages, every once in a while I'll allow it, are cavities. So little birds typically are okay, they're not as bad, but the bigger birds who have the sleepy hidey huts can get in that little cavity, and then they get really territorial about it. And then they get super turned on, and bad things just start to happen there. So they can get aggressive with the hidey hut. So that's one thing that I don't love. It's a sexual stimulation. Quickly, diet, variety. That goes with abundance weaning. Pellets are always ideal to have as a base. The exception being the Eclectus parrots. Anybody have an Eclectus parrot? Okay. So the Eclectus parrots are just very sensitive to pellets, so we never increase their pelleted diet over 50% because they get a cool thing where, well, it's not cool, but medically it's cool. Well, they'll flap their wings and stomp their foot, and they've got too much mineral in their body, and so once we right their diet, then they go back to normal. Quaker parrots, typically for me, a 0 seed tolerance with Quakers. Quakers store fat in their liver, and they get fat that lines their arteries, and they'll, so atherosclerosis, heart attacks with these guys. So if you've got a Quaker, you want to almost give 0 seed with these guys. Cockatiels, too, I like more seed with cockatiels because, once again, too many pellets can cause a kidney malfunction. So they can get some tubular damage of the kidneys, and that can cause early kidney failure. So every bird, those are the big exceptions. Every other bird we want about 60 to 70% pellets, and then a human food, a huge human food variety. And on your last couple of pages, I just printed some good suggestions. It's the chop diet that we like here. And you can just use some of those ingredients, chop it up finely. You can bake some of those in a birdie bread. And so those are some healthy choices. And then I will also say, I know organic is expensive, but you're feeding a tiny stomach. And so you can absolutely feed your bird organic. And this is particularly important because of how small they are and how easily they're going to concentrate toxins in their liver. So at all times when you can get organic, get organic. Harrison's Rowdy Bush Oven Baked Origin Bird Food, Lefebvre, these are ones I like. Origin Bird Food, I don't know, if you're feeding Origin Bird Food, it is they prepare only for a client, a middleman, you order directly from them. They've got African gray food. They're an intriguing company. They're definitely a company to go home and look up. I love a lot of what they stand for. They've done a lot of research. They have a lot of variety in their foods. And so I think that's an exceptional diet. Air quality is very important. We have, these guys are able to fly because of their extensive and magnificent air sacs through their body. So the air sacs don't work as a lung does. So our lung is take air in, let air out. They do have lungs, but the air sac is unidirectional. So they're bringing air into their lungs, then it moves into their air sacs, and then with each breath, it shifts into different areas of their air sacs. So their long bones their big long bones are hollow, and this allows them to fly. So now you can understand why air purity is critical for them. So in the wild, they're not having to deal with small areas. They're not having to deal with cigarette smoke, Febreze plugins, clean that are extremely toxic to birds. I tell owners if you,
Getting back to the food real quick,
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Holder, a lot of the bird magazines recommend growing sprouts for the birds.
Yes.
And I didn't see that on the list. Are there particular sprouts that are better than others for the birds?
Can you do me a favor and
Yes.
repeat the question before you answer it, just in case?
Yes. So the question is, do I have to look at the camera?
No, you don't have
Okay,
to.
thank God. Okay. So the question is, what sprouts, because sprouting is wonderful, what sprouts are the best for your birds? So I think that I'm having a trouble thinking of a sprout that's not good for them. But once again, in moderation. So every single thing that you give except pellets, you're going to do in moderation for them. So, yeah, I don't think of any sprouts that are toxic or harmful to them.
There's so many different kinds.
There are so many different, that's overwhelming. So I think you're probably okay to just go and tiptoe into the waters with one or two that may be an easier sprout, and see how it goes with them.
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question as well about what if you inherited a bird that was not on pellets?
Yes. Oh, great question.
Won't eat them.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite questions.
Yay.
So the question is, what if I inherited a bird and he's not on pellets and he's not going to eat pellets? What kind of bird is it, first of all?
Yellow-naped Amazon.
Okay, yellow-naped Amazon. Very smart, very sassy. very independent, not necessarily the loving, lovey-dovey's, but super awesome birds. So I tell every client that asks me that question, they ask it to me all the time, they absolutely can be converted to pellets. They can, yes.
Really?
Yes. So
20
here's,
plus year old.
absolutely. So here is your trick on doing it, is that I'm going to give you a few tools that you're going to try, but the first thing I'm going to tell you is do not give up. This can take 6 months, okay? What you're going to do is lose a lot of money, not a lot, but you're going to lose some money in pellets. Sign one, good sign one, she pulls it out of the bowl and throws it on the ground. That's excellent sign one. She's not scared of the pellet. She's putting the pellet in her mouth and she's touching it. The other thing with new bird owners you may not understand or know is that you're going to see 50% of pellets crumbled on the ground. They're actually consuming about 50% of that. So they actually are eating some. If you see the pellets in the water, awesome sign. They are eating the pellets, okay? One way that you can try to get them to convert is soak the pellets in apple juice or a little grape juice, a little juice that they might find to be yummy. You can also use pellets, grind up pellets, and bake it in bread. And so you can use like the Harrison's bird bread, and that has a pelleted base, and you can try to wean them on that way. Harrison's bird bread, yeah. You can do lots of different things. You can also let them not have any food in their cage and just give them pellets in the morning. So they get 30 minutes with just pellets. There's about, and we can talk more. Does anybody have questions about that as well? Difficulty in converting over to pellets? Because we can talk more. I've got a bit.
One question on the apple juice.
Yes.
I buy organic apple juice, but there's sugar in it.
There is.
Is that okay for the birds?
So it's not the perfect ideal situation, but you're using it as a tool to wean them onto the pellets, so I'm okay with it temporarily. What you may see is you may see a little bit more urine in the bottom of the cage because it's a little bit sugary. It's not a diet that we're going to keep them on for forever, but you definitely can use it as a weaning tool.
In terms of the nutriberries, that has a lot of seed in it, and our
It
parrot
does.
loves those nutriberries.
The nutriberries also have ground pellets in it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's okay that she loves these nutriberries.
It's okay. Yep. So I like to use the nutriberries as more of a treat. But since they have done a really good job, so one of the problems that we have with seeds, I mean, I literally can talk to you guys all night, is that you'll get a bag in the grocery store that'll say fortified seeds, vitamins and minerals. Well, the company has sprayed on top of the seeds the vitamins and minerals. And what do your birds do? Pop it open. So there's nothing but fatty nastiness in there for them. In addition, seed grows aflatoxins, which are toxic to birds. So Lefebvre has shelled the seeds, ground up pellets, and then fortified the seed mixture with vitamins and minerals. So it is definitely a step up. And another good way, potentially, to convert a bird to pellets. So you can use nutriberries as well.
She doesn't like that.
Doesn't like it. Okay. We'll talk more. I'll give you some good ideas. Yeah.
Do you have a feeling about the Avi cakes that are 50% pellets and the rest seeds?
Yeah.
Good.
So I like those, but we want to keep our seed diet to about 10%. Okay. So that's
Just a treat.
That's right. That's the ratio that we're looking for in our healthy birds. Especially Amazons, not to hammer that, but Amazons are probably problem children number 2 with fatty liver, atherosclerosis, and so we'll work on getting your bird off. We can do it.
What about
I've never not converted a bird, just so you know.
wild grass seed shoots?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I do that a lot.
Wonderful. That's another great, really rich, like a sprout, very nutrient rich. So that's lovely to do that, especially if they'll eat it. Bill, you've got some ideas. You put pellets in eggs.
Okay, yeah. Well, no, I put vegetables.
You put vegetables?
I chop vegetables up. And then I kind of put a little bit of red palm fruit oil,
Nice.
organic, just
Wonderful.
take it down every other day.
Wonderful. I
What
love
is
it.
that palm oil? I noticed you sell it. What does
Organic
that
palm
do for the
oil
bird?
is just a healthy fatty acid. So for Eclectus birds, I don't think there's any processed diet that has enough of the healthy fatty oil in it. So every single one of my Eclectus birds needs to be on that. We've got some birds that have high cholesterol from poor diet. So that omega fatty acid is a wonderful way to try to help in a healthy way balance and bring down the high cholesterol.
What would be the dosage for, say, an Amazon of that oil? Because it doesn't really say anything.
It doesn't. I think that I've got that in the glossary, and I'll get it for you. I feel like offhand it's 1 teaspoon to a pound of food. And so you coat it, mix it, and then put it in the fridge and let them. I feel like that's what I typically recommend. I can't remember for sure, but I think that's it. But I'll look that up for you. Those are really good. Any other questions about converting? You can convert. You can do it. It's just a labor of love, and it takes a lot of dedication, and I think a lot of prep work too. I mean, like, you know, if we're going to do the chopped diet or whatever, so you could maybe crush some pellets, do the chopped diet. You can get really creative with getting them to eat some pellets and then slowly increase. If you can stay away from the colored pellets, just because it colors their poop, it makes it a little bit more difficult for you to know what's happening in their poop, and it's just more things that they have to process and deal with their livers. So I really like the natural colors.
Is there any problem with leaving pellets available all the time?
No, there's no problem with leaving pellets available all the time. If I tell you that your bird is fat, then we'll talk about that. They absolutely do become perch potatoes, and they do get obese, and then we'll modify the diet and deal with it. If you've got a forager, which we'll talk more about that, and getting the treats in a great way. So maybe your Amazon, if your Amazon, you know, only wants to eat a certain seed or something, now let's make your bird work for it. So that's another great thing we can do too. All of those seed treats and things, they should be trying to find it and forage for it. Okay, great question. I can't think of everything, but you guys are helping me think of everything. Okay, so back to air quality. So we're going to move on from food. We're going to come back to food, but we're going to move on from food for just a little bit. Air quality, extremely, extremely important. Rule of thumb, if you smell it, your bird smells it 100 times more. So if you are doing something like my husband was cooking the other night and was burning the pan, have an exit route for your, I don't use Teflon, but it's still smoky. Have an exit route for your bird. So my bird's right beside a door and she just goes outside. So, you know, take precaution for anything that you can smell. Clean with vinegar and water. You shouldn't be using chemicals in your home anyway. Sorry, I'm gonna get up on my soapbox for just a minute, but there's really no reason to use the chemicals in your home. So certainly don't use it around your bird. Vinegar and water is just fine.
What about candles, scented candles?
Thank you for bringing that up. So I say soy-based candles are about your only safe bet. Yeah.
And even gave me a beautiful candle, and I'm like, I didn't want to say I can't.
You're like,
burn it.
oh, thanks, right? The bird owners know not to do stuff like that.
What about smoky outside? You know, when they're outside.
Yeah.
Somebody's got a burn pile going or whatever. You need to get them in.
Bring them inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have good air quality, I've been seeing a lot of weird cases that we are finding. I'm working with the University of Georgia and finding mold. And I've had a couple of deaths from that. We lost actually a few in a whole family. It was very sad. So if you feel like you may have a dank, wet house, then by all means, get an air purifier and put it beside your bird. I happen to really like the rabbit air, but there's, you know, just get a HEPA filter. It's good. Yeah, I really like the rabbit air filter. I think it's good for them.
What is safe to use? What is safe to use to like for smells in your house? Is anything safe to use?
No.
Essential oils.
Essential oils. That's it. Yeah, we'll get to that. There's no chemical besides a soy-based candle that's safe. Yeah.
Which includes all plugins.
Which includes all plugins. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
So the air filter for the bird is this machine that filters the air, and what was it called again?
It's on your paper.
Oh.
I gave you the website.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for you to go to it. It's rabbit air. It's really good filter, and it also helps with the dander. So the African grays, the cockatiels, the cockatoos, they produce an enormous amount of dander, and so the air purifiers really help them. let's touch on sunlight really quickly. All right, sunlight. Are the birds getting what they need from the sunlight, which is the UV light that stimulates the conversion of vitamin D in their skin to absorb the calcium that they're eating? Does everybody understand that? You could feed them calcium. You can be doing an amazing job with the diet. If they're not getting the sunlight, they cannot absorb the calcium. Does a window filter 0 to 100%? How much of that UV light does a window filter?
70%.
100%.
Oh.
100%. 100%. There is no good that can come from keeping your bird by a window except this wonderful stimulation. And I'm sure they like the sunlight. I mean, I certainly keep my bird by glass doors so that she can look out and see everything. But I understand that she's getting 0 of the UV light that she needs. And so down the road, what this can do for these guys is they slowly get calcium depleted, and they begin to take the calcium from their bones because they're going to have a calcium level in their body. So they're going to pull it from their bones, they're going to get weak bones, and they're not going to be good thrivers. So how much UV light does a screen filter?
70?
Yep.
Yeah.
So not all of it. So if you've got your bird on a porch and it's protected by the screen, you're getting some filters. So you might need to keep the bird longer outside, and we'll go over times in just a minute. But you're at least getting some UV light through that screen. So I would say if you can do a few hours a week, that's enough sunlight for them. They don't have to be in direct sunlight. You don't have to put them right in the sun. They can be in the shade because the UV lights are radiating off the surfaces. If they're in a screen, you may want to double or triple that. So you might want to keep them out 2 or 3 days in a screened-in porch. They're going to get all the UV light that they need. Okay. 5 years ago, I went to an AAV conference, and they had just published some fascinating research, and they were measuring vitamin D levels in cockatiels that were exposed to sunlight and UV lamps. Now, up until that time, I've been doing this for over 15 years. At that time, I was recommending to my elderly clients that couldn't get their birds outside, get a UV broad spectrum lamp. They're going to get the UV light. Well, it turns out that birds are absorbing almost none of the UV lamp. So it just doesn't work. Don't waste your money. Don't do it. You have to get the bird out in the sunlight.
Well, so the challenge is in the winter when it's, 40 degrees.
Another great question.
You roll them outside.
Yeah, another great question. So birds are really tolerant to weather conditions typically. Well, I tell owners, because a lot of owners say, what's the best weather environment for my bird? Well, I don't know the answer to that because I don't know your bird particularly. And it doesn't have anything to do with species, because up north, they live, I know several avian veterinarians who have aviaries outside in the snow. Their cockatoos live in the snow and play in the snow. So they've acclimated to it. So you have to pay attention to your bird. Is your bird panting? Is your bird, are your bird's wings out? Is your bird trying to cool himself down? Then the bird is too hot. You know what? That's an amazing time for a water bath. So let's do spritz, let's get a water bath. That'll help cool the bird down. If your bird is too cold, then shorter times outside and bring him in. But they can acclimate more than what you think. If you have to go a few weeks, in Florida it's nice because it's only a short period of time that it's cold. If they go a few weeks without going outside, that's okay. That's okay, yeah. So you just pay attention to what your bird tells you. If your bird is fluffed up and shaken, it's time to come in. Your bird's cold, okay? Awesome. Bathing, so tricks to get your bird to take a bath. So sometimes most of the time the birds love to take it in the water bowl. Like you may have this gorgeous bath, you may put it right there for the bird, you're like, go take your bath, and your bird is like, no thank you, I will try to squeeze my fat butt in a small little water bowl and take a bath. I don't know why that is, but they do. So through the years, my clients have told me the best stories. One client told me that their bird decided, I think it was you, tell me if it was you, Bill, one of your stories, but one client told me that when it rains outside, their bird immediately starts to want to go to a bath. Another client told me that when they vacuum, yes, their bird gets all excited and wants to take a bath. And so
The dog runs the other way.
yeah, so take advantage of those times. So maybe that's a good time to put a water bowl in there for them. But if they don't want to do it, it's a good time to spritz them because they're feeling really good and they want to have their little bath. And then I've also told some clients that we had excess dander to please buy a CD of the rain. Now, of course, we just have our phones. So turn the rain on your phone if the bird decides that they want to spritz. Or you can do a spritz. And please don't spray at your bird unless they really like it and it's fun and it's a game. But mostly we want to be spritzing above. Maybe they don't see you, or maybe you're hiding somewhere, but so that it's misting down on your bird and you can turn on some nice rain jams while you're doing it. And that's cool. That's another way to mimic the natural environment, and that's lovely. Okay. Oh my goodness, so much more. We're going to try to go a little bit faster. Okay, veterinary care for your bird. Quarantine, 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 quarantine. I cannot stress enough to you. You will read on the internet 30 days of quarantine. At Florida Wild, we tell you 90 days of quarantine. I prefer not to use the same airspace, but if you have to, then just go at least into a separate room. When a bird comes into a new environment, they are very stressed out. We talked about this. They are likely to get sick. They could be harboring something that we didn't know about for years. Then they get sick, and now you've got a situation where your healthy bird is now going to succumb to that as well. So please be very aware of the quarantine period of 90 days. Well, why do we bug you about doing blood work when you come into Florida Wild? Once again, birds are prey species. Also, we have a very large normal range for birds. So we have, a white blood cell count of between 9,000 and 16,000, say that's normal. Well, your bird may run 10,000 and that may be your bird's normal, but your bird gets sick and it's 15,000. If I haven't been tracking the white blood cell count, then you come in with your sick bird at 15,000 and I say, it's in the normal range. And so being able to track those values are very important for me for long-term care. So that's why we recommend doing the blood work. We test for chlamydia, we test for PBFD, and those birds that may be more likely to get it are big PBFD offenders. African greys, lovebirds are huge carriers of PBFD, and they will present as just little sick birds. So PBFD either kills the bird or it acts like AIDS. So they're constantly kind of like just getting sick, not a thriving bird. But you want to know about these infectious diseases because it of course gives us more information to take care of them, and in case you want to bring another bird into the environment. When we do fecal testing, a lot of owners immediately think it's for parasites, but our birds inside don't typically get parasites. What we're looking for is white blood cells, red blood cells, any fiber that may be indigestible or undigestible. So those are the things that we're looking for when we do the fecal directs. Well, yeah, we're looking for parasites too. It's just very uncommon. So that poop test that we recommend once a year actually gives us a lot of information about the GI health of your bird. So that's why we do that. And on a page in the back, we'll just give you more information about why we're recommending the things that we recommend when we do. Should we know your bird's sex? It's helpful. We may find out your bird is egg-bound, and we find out at that point that it's a female. I do think it helps, males, we can take that off the list. We never have to worry about that. It can be devastating, egg binding, and they could never lay an egg and get egg bound. And like I said, it can be devastating. So that does help us to know. Okay, really quickly, let's run through toxicities to birds. We've got aerosolized, Teflon. You're cooking with Teflon is fine. If you burn the Teflon, they will drop dead right off their perch. Do not, do not, do not. It is very sad. We've had multiple cases. I think I've pulled one little Quaker through it, and that was intense hospitalization for about 2 weeks. So be very careful.
Also, new copper pants they're advertising. Is that the equivalent of Teflon?
No, I think they're okay. But like, even though I use the stainless steel, if it starts to smoke or burn at all, I just get If I can smell something, Penelope's going away. She's going outside. I'm not taking any chances with her. Okay, so cleaning agents, candles, air fresheners, we already talked about that. Food, avocado. So the avocado leaves are toxic, and they will actually, the fruit can be toxic to them as well. So stay away from guacamole, anything with avocado in it. Big no-no for birds. Chocolate and caffeine. Caffeine will raise their heart rate. They can have heart attacks from caffeine. Be careful. High fatty foods we talked about with Quakers. Fruit seeds and pits. I think we all know that arsenic is in apples, so we want to stay away from those. Xylitol, just
Apples or apple seeds?
apple seeds. Sorry,
Okay.
Apple seeds. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. No. Apples are wonderful. Apple seeds. Xylitol is a very scary sweetener that we've got out for our pets. Please be aware they're starting to put it in peanut butter now. They're starting to put it into some of our things that we may use for our pets. A tiny piece, just to give you an idea, because I had a lovely xylitol incident in my house a few nights ago. My husband bought Tic Tac gum, and I don't allow sugar-free gum in our house for this reason. And neither one of us realized it was sugar-free gum. So we bought a Tic Tac, the size of a Tic Tac, and my 75-pound dog, he dropped on the floor. My 75-pound dog reached down, grabbed it. It was gone in 1 second. That was 1/3 his lethal dose. So I did make him vomit. But all he needed was 3 Tic Tacs, and he could have been dead within 15 minutes. They get hypoglycemic. It's very sad. So be very careful. If you've got friends that are over and they're chewing, just, FYI, if they're chewing xylitol gums, just really toxic. Right. Panic. No. Onions and garlic, and then salt, of course, will change the blood pressure in these guys, and so that can be dangerous. Zinc. Zinc is pretty much in a lot of places that you don't think. There are places that you know. So caging, anything that's rusting, if you're suspending a toy with metal and it's rust, just get rid of it. Zinc is also in rare places like the glue of toilet paper rolls. So they like to chew on that and it's fun, but there's definitely some zinc in there. Not in all of them. There's some zinc-free glue, but I just say, just be careful with what you let them chew. Bells, there was a study done about 14 or 15 years ago, and they took the layers of the bells off, and underneath the bird-safe bells was zinc, high enough to be toxic. So pay attention to your toys and just remove them if they get chipped or they're rusted. They're not good anymore. No money, no pennies. They can't play with pennies. That'll definitely give them toxicities. Signs of zinc toxicity are gastrointestinal. Usually we have vomiting, regurgitation, we have diarrhea, we maybe have a crop that gets swollen, and then progressing to seizures. So heavy metals, no joke with them. It's treatable. We can treat it. We can bind it with injections and oral medications. We just have to get to them soon enough.
Dr. Holder,
Yeah.
what about paint on some of these bird cages? Like Tiki came with a bird cage,
Yeah.
and the paint is all chipping off, and I'm really worried about it. It was made in Mexico, and I'm just not sure.
No way.
Get rid
Because
of it.
you don't even know about the lead content either.
Yeah,
And lead, the symptom of lead is seizure and death. So
wow.
zinc is treatable. Lead is very difficult because they get toxic very quickly.
Wow, we need to get rid of this cage.
Can I ask you,
Please.
I've not seen my bird ever vomit, but every so often she gets like a little string of mucus that she play with for
What kind of bird?
umbrella cockatoo,
Okay.
and she'll just
How old?
she was a rescue, so
Okay.
we think 14.
Okay. So typically, I don't think mucus is normal. So I usually think there's something maybe going on in the crop and there's GI stasis. That being said, cockatoos also are a little bit different. So it may be that that's okay and normal for her. But my first thought would be I would have that mucus, I would have that checked out when she's doing it. Yeah, when she's doing it, when you see it, we can do a crop swab, we can stain it and make sure that the
Should I try to get it while I see them?
you can.
With like a Q-tip?
Yep.
And
Yeah, you can. Or like maybe, well, that probably won't, because Q-tip may absorb it all. I would say something if you can, like a microscope slide, even though you don't have it, but like sitting on the glass, something where you can preserve it. Yeah, yeah. Mucus typically is abnormal. You see mucoid poop, that's not normal. Something's going on in the GI tract.
She plays with it almost like it's chewing gum,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes me a little nervous. Oh, curbing naughty behavior in our pet birds, screaming, biting, feather destruction. The most important thing that we can do with all of our birds, which is a pain in the butt for us, but the reward is really wonderful, is teaching them to forage. So something as easy as putting their favorite nut in a paper, in a piece of paper and crushing it up, putting it on the bottom, teaching them to open it up, rip it open, and then you go for the really intense, like they have to unscrew things and open things up. And this is keeping their mind happy and healthy while you're gone at work, and teaching them to look for their food and teaching them to look for their yummy food. And so it's a highly wonderful motivational tool. One of the most important things I think you can do for a bird is foraging. So there's a wonderful DVD. Did I write it down for you?
Captive forage.
Yeah, it's a lovely DVD. It's on Amazon. It gives you great ideas. It gives you great ideas on how to teach these guys to be foragers. Also, I've given you another website, Good Bird Inc. Dr. Barbara, she's a PhD. Dr. Barbara Heinrich, she's a vet tech and she's a PhD. She's one of the U.S. renowned bird behavior specialists. She teaches us veterinarians at the avian conferences. So go to her website if you have any questions about your bird. You can order DVDs, you can get help, you can join groups. She is such a wonderful resource for knowledge. Okay, so appropriate behavior with your bird, no petting down the back, no feeding warm mushy foods. If you know they're getting a little happy on your hands, stop the behavior, put them inside their cage, and try not to be the only one that interacts with the bird if you can. If you can't, you can't. It's fine. But if you can, then try to have multiple people interacting with the bird. We talked about abundance weaning. We talked about cavities. One thing I really don't like when, and Dr. Heinrich will talk a lot of this, is negative training with birds. You hear a lot of people just get frustrated. Shut up, you know, and shake the cage, and it makes them screech louder, and it's not teaching them anything positive. Birds respond wonderfully to positive reinforcement. There is zero time when you need to use negative reinforcement with a bird. Zero. There's not ever, it's never appropriate. All it does, it makes your bird not like you. Your bird is very smart, and he's gonna, or she is going to be very suspicious of you, and then probably just try to piss you off even more because it's a lot of fun. So don't do it.
Jade says hi, Aunt Erin.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're Florida do alternative care for pet birds. So of course we do the mainstream.
No mushy food, question mark?
No mushy food. Good. What does FloridaWild do alternative? We do laser therapy. I use a lot of that on wing injuries, on any type of infections. I use acupuncture. I had a very severely abused cockatoo that came to see me for acupuncture, and he couldn't move. He stayed pretty much scrunched up, and we started doing acupuncture, and for the rest of his life that he lived, he could climb all over his cage, and he was a wonderful blue boy, wonderful little bird. We use flower essences. We use essential oils. This is very important. We're going to get to that because most of my clients think I'm crazy because I tell them, don't you dare let your bird be near anything that you can smell. And then a lot of times I recommend essential oils. So we're going to get to that and tell you how wonderful they are for birds, and they're not toxic. We also can use ozonated saline therapy, which is a powerful way to cleanse wounds. So if we have any wounds on these guys, we can flush it with ozonated saline. So we're doing all kinds of cool things for pet birds.
So
yeah.
So ozone is then safe for the bird. I mean, if you
so
have
ozonated saline. So ozonated saline, yeah. So we take medical grade oxygen and we run it through saline through. So the ozone itself could be, I think, very irritating to their respiratory tract if they smell it. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Flower essences. These are wonderful. We're just getting into, I always tell clients to go to the health food stores and get the Bach essences, but we have now just placed our first order, and we're going to be making the Bach essences in-house. We're going to be mixing them because I don't want you to have to go get 2 or 3, and I'm also going to be doing it without alcohol. So the Bach essences, the flower essences are preserved in alcohol. That keeps them around a lot longer. Bach essences are wonderful for emotional homeopathy. So for fear, for abuse, before coming to the veterinarian, for feather destructive behavior, I love to use Bach essences. Those are wonderful. Lastly, yeah.
How would you use them?
So it depends. What you've got, whatever you've got going on, we may add it to the water. It may be a patient that responds beautifully to oral, so we can drip drop in the mouth. A lot of our pets love to hand feed, so we can do that. But most of the time, we'll give you a mixture of what you put, usually mixed with spring water, into their water, and they just drink that and use it that way. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Prescribed for my adopted YouTube the lavender and lemon oil for the spray bath.
Oh, that's what we'll talk about next. Yes.
She loves those.
Do wet pellets count as mushy food, and is this a behavior thing?
So pellets are not mushy food. Pellets are hard, so it would be any like sweet potato or pasta or pellets that have been soaked in water would be, they were wondering what is the mushy food, what counts as mushy food. What was the second part?
Is this a behavior thing?
This is a mating thing. So mates will feed each other in the wild back and forth. And so we want to not create that mating relationship with our birds. That's going to lead us nowhere good quickly, because we can't mate with them and fulfill their desire with us. So we have to be a flock member with them and not a mate member.
So cooked pasta is bad, obviously, but for hard pasta, because I know a lot of
cooked pasta is fine for them. Yeah, it's just a matter of knowing how much and during what time. So if they're reproductively aggressive, then we're going to withdraw any of the mushy foods, and we're definitely not going to feed them from our mouth. I know you guys are thinking, "Oh my God, that is so disgusting," but you would be surprised that I had to say that. Do not do that.
We're all going.
Is it better to have a mated a pair as opposed?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the question is, should we fulfill their sexual desires by finding a mate for them? Okay, that's like taking your teenage daughter and telling your teenage daughter that this will be your future husband. It is very difficult. They want to pick their own mate out.
Okay.
And it is offensive to them that you would try to do that. Now, you may find a bird that bingo, they hit it off and they love each other instantly. Then they don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. And now you've got birds that love each other, and now they're not foraging, and now they're not flying. Guess what they're going to do a lot of? Yeah. So I say no. I say create flocks. Don't create mate situations.
Silly questions only because I don't own a bird.
Not a silly question. They're great questions.
To learn.
Yeah, they're great questions.
So, out of curiosity, if you have a mated pair and
Yes.
do they reproduce a lot of, do they have eggs that are fertile? Is it complicated?
Absolutely depends.
Okay.
So it absolutely depends. If the conditions are right, especially like I've got a technician who has lovebirds. If the conditions are right, they're going to keep making babies. But there are certainly pairs that do not reproduce. They love each other. There may be a female and a male. There may be 2 males that love each other or 2 females that love each other. Obviously, they're not going to reproduce. But the male and the female may not. So it really depends. They've got to have the mood lighting and the music.
To make it extra special.
Right.
So keeping them in solitude and just putting them in your family flock with the dog and the cat
people.
That's
and all
the
that
flock.
Is the better
Yes.
thing rather than
They're
try to.
flock species. Oh yeah, they need to be in the action. They need to be a part of it, for sure.
I just don't see so many, any person that I've known that
Yeah.
have birds, they just solitary in a cage
Right.
and they just sit there and I
It's
don't
sad.
like it.
It's sad. Yeah.
That's why I don't have a bird.
Yeah, it's very, very sad. And there's, you know, you guys are here, so you guys are going to be amazing owners, but there's a huge world out there where we see all the time where they're not, and so we're trying to help.
Are my alcohol-free Avitec supplements okay, or are the Bach ones better?
Avitec's okay, but Avitec is not it's not a homeopath. It's not an emotional homeopath. It's a supplement. Those are fine. They're just for two different things. Bach is an emotional homeopath. Yes.
Dr. Holder, there is online a guy called the Parrot Wizard, and he sells a lot of DVDs for exercising your bird with harnesses, how to train your bird to wear a harness and fly.
Oh, I'm glad you said train. Good.
Have,
Okay.
have you any experience with that? Do you think it's okay, or do you think it's okay?
I think it could be amazing.
Okay,
I'm
great.
so glad you said training. Another thing is wonderful is clicker training with them. So clicker training is great. They're easy. They learn it very quickly. Use positive reinforcement with maybe their most, you know, a sunflower seed. They're horrible. I hate sunflower seeds, but that's the time when using them is appropriate, when you're really trying to get them trained and get them to do what you want them to do. It's wonderful to use a sunflower seed for that. So training is great. You're just stimulating the bird. And so you're taking the bird out of the cage and teaching it and making it use its brain and its body. And so you will have a happy, healthier bird. The littler birds aren't quite as needy. The bigger birds are.
Are there any sources for cages or cage materials you can recommend?
I like, and you can go online to find out when, but I think the bird shows do a really good job. I haven't been to them in a while, but I used to work at them when I first graduated, and they had very good products. And they're frequent.
There's a company that makes like really, I wish I could think of the name, but I used to have rats.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you can't have anything with paint or
Right.
anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
Toxic. And they made cages of all variations for all animals.
Yeah.
Well, there's a line out called Purview that's very popular
Yes.
online,
Yeah.
but they seem to be small for the types of birds. You know, they'll say, well, this is good for an Amazon, but it seems really small.
Oh, that's a really, really great point. So cage size. So what is an appropriate cage size? So basically as big as you can possibly get the cage in your house with the bar size that's appropriate for your bird. So that's another fantastic point, is they really need to have as much space as possible if you can. One more thing I'll touch on with cages is another lovely thing to have is a sleep cage for them. So they need to have a very good night of sleep, and if they're in a cavity, they feel safe, they can relax, they can have a really good night of sleep. But if they're constantly on guard, maybe they keep getting woken up, so that's another source of stress for them. So a sleep cage is a little teeny cage with water, no food. It's small, it's like a cavity. You put them in there at night, you may cover it, and that's where they sleep. So that's a wonderful, a lot of times with behavior problems, one of the things that we'll do is give them a sleep cage. So that's
Our
great
bird
too.
totally freaks out if I cover the cage. I don't think it ever was covered.
Yeah. So if you can get, it's Tiki, right? You change it. Yeah, if you can get Tiki in and out, then
Oh, easily.
a sleeping cage might be just wonderful for
She
Tiki.
seems to sleep well in her huge cage. She sticks her head under her wing and she's out.
Good.
So,
Good.
but
Awesome. So the last thing we'll talk about really quickly, and then I'll answer any more questions that you have, are essential oils. So essential oils are wonderful. Essential oils will diffuse right up in a bird's face. So please don't be worried or shy. I diffuse essential oils almost every single day in my home. I diffuse them directly beside my bird. There's never even been a sneeze associated with it. There's also a wonderful essential oil practitioner who is a wildlife rescuer, and I would love for her to come and do another lecture here. I actually learned a lot about essential oils from her, and she uses them almost exclusively with her wildlife rehabilitation, and she's seen some amazing things with resuscitation, with stress. Lavender is wonderful. When I have birds with sinus infections, I'm going to diffuse eucalyptus. A side story, I adopted my child from Ethiopia, and he came at 5 months old with purulent snot, and he had purulent snot for a year. And then I learned about essential oils. I put a diffuser of eucalyptus beside his bed. We diffused it for 5 nights. He's never, ever had a runny nose since. So it is extremely powerful. You know, use it for yourself. It's wonderful. We diffuse at night, but don't be afraid to use essential oils with your birds. And hopefully we're going to have an essential oil class. It's not too far away if you guys are interested in essential oils, and we'll talk in depth and in detail about cats, dogs, and birds, what essential oil you can use, when, how, and you can just, of course, take that into your own life and use it for yourself. I treat another funny story, my same son went over to a neighbor's house and said, hey, Miss Lisa, can you look at my foot? I was our neighbor. And Miss Lisa said, but isn't your mom a doctor? And she's going to put essential oils on it. So that's how I treat my family with homeopathy and essential oils. All right. Any more questions? Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I've got so much more, but it's...
I have a behavior question.
Yes.
My bird likes to chip off a bit of a toy, wooden piece,
Yes.
and then use it as a tool. Like she's tunneling out
Absolutely.
of jail or whatever. Is there anything
Amazing.
behind
Yeah, brilliant.
that?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh,
Yeah.
Exactly what I-
I'm getting out here.
The door's open
I love it. So that is so cool. And there's stories about birds in the wild that they take things, they use it as tools to open nuts, and that's just a natural behavior that is so fun to watch. So fun to watch.
Well,
Yeah.
Ellen asked me to ask you a question about a bird throwing food at him.
Yeah, that's
So he'll come over to the cage, and sometimes she'll take food from him, and other times she'll just grab it and throw it at him. And it's funny, but he was wondering, is she just playing, or is she angry, or?
It depends on her body language. So I would say all of the above are a possibility. So she could literally just be playing, but she could be saying, being a little feisty with them. I suspect it's playing. That's just my thought with her. Yeah.
Are there any essential oils that are toxic?
Are there any essential oils that are toxic? So I do put an asterisk beside melaleuca, which is tea tree oil. And the only reason I do, even though I use it all the time, is because there was a study by the Journal of American Veterinary Medical Association that was published of a dog that passed away from the owner using tea tree oil. Now, the owner was giving it orally, diffusing it, infusing it rectally, and using it topically at the same time.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Just saying.
Just saying, yeah. Maybe that might have been what happened. Yeah. So that went viral, and so that is now. And if you Google essential oils in animals, you will get all kinds of toxicity. I would tell you that cats are the only, when you use directly, they're a little bit more sensitive. So we'll talk about that in the essential oil class. They're a little bit more sensitive, but diffusing them, fabulous.
My cockatiel was recently diagnosed with gram-negative bacillus. What's the mode of transmission, the reservoir of that?
So
I know it's a group of bacteria.
it is. So the thing about birds is that they have an enormous amount of bacteria that are already in their GI tract. And so, yes, they could have eaten something rancid, or there could have been some food ingestion, but it could be that there was an underlying imbalance that caused that particular bacteria to overgrow and overtake the good bacteria. And that's likely what's happened.
Well, I know it's found in the soil and it's ubiquitous in the environment.
It is ubiquitous.
So I thought that being in the grass seed sprouts, I wonder if it could come from there.
Yeah, it's possible. If you asked me that like we were doing an exam, I'd be like, yeah, it's possible. It's not something I would tell you, do not do it.
Are there any local trees that are absolute no-nos?
Oh, that's good. Oak trees are toxic. There's a list you can go online, but my favorite is just stay with fruit trees. And the reason why I love fruit trees so much, like the kumquat trees and all those, are because they're soft wood, and they're wonderful for them to chew on.
Are the oak trees toxic to dogs?
No. I think if they ate enough of acorns, they might get sick, but they're not toxic.
Toxic in what sense? Like they eat the bark and then it becomes toxic?
Of the trees?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or the
Not
leaves.
like magnolia trees.
Yeah. I think magnolia is safe.
Well,
Yeah. I just take away the leaves and just do a soap and water wash and then let them dry. And just make sure that you're pesticide free, of course. Yeah, no pesticides anywhere. Anything else? God, questions were amazing. Thank you so much for your questions. Yeah, you're welcome. We'll have emergency lecture in a few weeks. We'll do Reiki. We'll do all kinds of cool stuff. Maybe in our new location. We'll see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everybody else?
Yeah.
For